Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find us on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Another video in the grinding tips series. This one's going to be on getting steady. So the first video was your stance in relation to the grinder and the belt. The second video was just about 10 minutes ago or so. It was on balance, which goes hand in hand with your stance. Okay. Balance with your grinder's balance, grinders with your body's balance, which has an awful lot to do with your stance. Balance in your head, not to fight with your wife right before you grind or while you're grinding. And doing a warm-up to let your hands find their balance before you start grinding for real for the day. This one's going to be on getting steady, which is the natural progression from, to be able to get steady, you have to have a good solid stance. You have to be balanced in relation with your grinder. And you have to be balanced in your head before you can get steady. So all this is building on everything, and we haven't even really turned the grinder on yet. Okay, so to get steady, like I said, stance, balance. Now is you're going to, a lot of it is going to be based on your body position. Okay, you got to remember when you're grinding, nothing stays still. Okay, you're moving. I don't know of anybody that can stand absolutely still in one place and do nothing and not move some. Everybody's got a little sway to them, hands shake a little bit. Your body's always taking, clues from your environment on, how to stay balanced. A bicycle, if it stops and tries to remain still, more than likely it's going to fall over. So when you're grinding, nothing stays still. You got to remember that your grinder is always going to have a little bit of movement in its stance. You're always going to have a little bit of movement in your stance. The belt is always going to be grinding or moving. It's always going to be cutting when you put the blade up to the belt. Not only that, but as the belt wears, the grit will change the way that it's cutting. So when you go to put that blade up against that belt, it'll start off cutting very aggressively if it's brand new. Then, depending upon the belt, the steel that you're grinding, the pressure that you're using, whether you're grinding wet or dry, whatever, it will wear down and require more and more pressure as you go through the life of that belt. So that's changing. Plus, you can't stand still. But it's okay, because you don't need to stand still, because you need to move that blade back and forth across the belt. Okay? So the first thing to remember in getting steady is that nothing's going to stay still, and nothing's really going to be steady. So your job is to bring everything together all at the same time. Like riding a bike. Like I said, a bike in motion appears to be really steady. So we're going to use all that motion to make ourselves steady enough to be able to grind the knife, okay? All right, so to get steady, you got to first realize that everything's going to be moving. So what you want to do is realize where the movements are coming from, realize which ones you can control, which ones you can't, and then use all of that to bring that knife to be moving steadily across the belt as the belt is moving through it. The way I like to do that is the bigger, okay, if you go back to shooting, shooting a rifle. If you get Jeff Cooper's book, The Art of the Rifle, excellent book. Bone structure is the steadiest. Large muscle groups are the next steadiest. And small muscle groups are the least steadiest. Okay? So, remember in the first video on stance, I told you to get close. Okay? Well, the closer you get with your bone structure, the steadier you're going to be. Okay? Because now you don't have to lean over. If I was grinding out here, I'd be leaning over. Now I'm not relying on bone structure, I'm relying on large muscle groups. The farther away I am, the smaller my muscles get, the less steady I get. Okay, so you get in close with your bone structure so that everything is as steady as you can get with your bone structure. Now it's down to your big muscle groups, the muscles in your legs, in your back. Okay, now what I like to do is I like to brace my elbows up in against my rib cage and lock everything in as much as I possibly can, like this. Okay, then I can move the blade back and forth across the belt with my legs and my hips, because they're going to be steadier than what your hands are going to be. Okay, then your fine adjustments should be with your fingers, and that will adjust your presentation to the belt. Okay, so good solid stance, strong yet relaxed, comfortable, as close to the belt as you can get it. Lock your arms into the sides of your body so that they're nice and solidly supported as much as they can, and then you set your angles with your fingers. Okay, and then you make your presentation to the belt with your hips and your legs. So far, that's about the best way I know of to get steady with a moving belt on a grinder. Is bones, big muscles, use your little muscles to adjust your presentation, and then use your big muscles to come in and make the presentation. Now remember, this belt is going to be coming down here, coming down. In the case of this belt grinder runs this way. Okay, so as that belt comes down, it's going to be wanting to pull the blade downwards. Okay, so if everything is locked in place and your hands are acting mostly like a jig, then you'll be in a much better position to hold against that resistance, or alongside it, whichever way you want to look at it. And it's the same deal when you're going, tip to the right. Usually I'll grind on one side for a while, swap hands. Same thing on this side. Fingers are your jig. Your body is the mount, pretty much, that moves. Grind back and forth. Now sometimes you will, if you're using, if you're grinding like a chopper, you got 2 foot worth of blade, on something like that you'll have a little bit more of a problem, because you might end up having to grind in sections, or you may end up having to include your arms to get your arms away from your body to be able to smooth the grind out at the end. In a case like that, I don't think I have a chopper handy. Let's grab a long piece of leaf. Here's a chunk of leaf spring. So let's say you're grinding, a big chopper. This one's 2 foot long or so. You might put your support way out here, grind in just as far as you can, and then right at the end, somewhere or other, you'll have to pull your arm away from your body to be able to finish the grind. Now if you do that, just lighten up on your pressure a little bit, which will make it much easier to remain steady and finish the grind off. Little bitty hunters or neck knives or paring knives, anything like that. Again, this is a 2-inch wide belt. That's a 3.5-inch long blade. You would think you could just run your hands across it. It's much, much better to rely on your bones, major muscles, and then just use your smaller muscles to adjust the support of the blade. Anyway, that's about the best way I've ever found to get steady, and about the best explanation I've been able to come up with on how I get steady. And it's the same way, whether you're grinding tip to the right, tip to the left, or edge down, edge down the other way. If you're coming up in and you're gonna, flatten or taper a tang, it's the same thing. Get yourself I use a magnet most of the times. Come up in here, get your stance, line your bone structure up, use your big muscles to position yourself, plus to move, and then just use your smaller muscles to position the blade up against, to present the blade to the belt. Whether you're doing tip or if you're going to taper the blade, same thing. And if you're going to be grinding anything else, let's say you want to polish the face of your hammer, or you got a burr on a large part for something that you're building, and you've got this big old box out here you're trying to grind. Same thing, get as close as you can with your bone structure and your stance. Use your major muscles to move, and then use your smaller muscles to guide that movement. Anyway, I think that's about the best way I can explain how to get steady on a belt grinder. Nothing is ever steady when you're grinding. Your job is to bring all that unsteadiness to a place where you can do the work that you want to do, like on a bicycle. And think of your bone structure with your stance, large muscle groups to control your movement, small muscle groups to control the angle or the presentation of your movement. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, hope it helped, and we'll see you on the next one.